The night was supposed to be ordinary, but what unfolded has Atlanta buzzing louder than ever. Imagine the shock of fans when grainy but undeniable footage surfaced online, showing Kirk Frost slipping into a dimly lit restaurant on the outskirts of the city. At first, it seemed like a casual late-night dinner, nothing unusual. But then the camera zoomed, the angles shifted, and the woman walking closely by his side sent the internet into absolute meltdown. It wasn't Rashida, his longtime wife. The woman who has built both a family and an empire with him was Jasmine. The very woman tied to one of the most explosive scandals in love and hip-hop history. The two were seen laughing, leaning in close, and at one point, Kirk even brushed her hand away from the table in a move that looked far too familiar to be innocent. Within hours, social media erupted. Fans demanded answers. Blogs ran with headlines, like Kirk up to his old tricks, and Rashida betrayed again. Screenshots flew across Twitter timelines faster than wildfire, and speculation hit fever pitch. Was this just a coincidence? Was Kirk trying to make amends behind closed doors, or had he fallen back into the same trap that nearly destroyed his marriage before? The tension only grew when Rashida herself posted a cryptic message on Instagram, one that hinted she knew more than she was letting on. And if that wasn't enough, word began to spread that the cameras were rolling, that this so-called private night out may not have been so private after all. Fans are shocked, insiders are whispering, and emotions are running high. Tonight, we break down everything caught on camera, every gasp-worthy moment, and every reaction as this scandal threatens to shatter one of reality TV's most talked about marriages all over again. The streets of Atlanta had barely settled after the last round of drama when whispers began swirling again, and this time, the whispers grew into a storm no one could ignore. Because what people saw with their own eyes could not be brushed aside with excuses or explanations. Not when the footage showed Kirk Frost stepping out of his car with Jasmine right at his side, the two moving quickly, almost like they knew they shouldn't be seen but were too comfortable to care. Their steps in sync, their heads leaning toward one another as if every word was a secret meant to be shared only between them. And the energy in the air was unmistakable. The kind of chemistry that sparks speculation the second strangers catch it. And Atlanta caught it on camera, with fans replaying the clip frame by frame, analyzing every glance, every smirk, every move as though it were evidence in a trial. And the verdict from the public was swift. Kirk had once again crossed a line. And this time it wasn't whispers from the past but a brand new chapter of betrayal unfolding in plain sight. The kind that Rashida, strong as she had been through years of public humiliation, might not be able to withstand again, because even the strongest hearts grow weary when history insists on repeating itself. And while Kirk and Jasmine sat inside that dimly lit restaurant, heads bent low, hands brushing across the table, fans outside and online were already sharpening their words, calling out Kirk for his audacity, Jasmine for her boldness, and speculating on what Rashida must be feeling in that exact moment as the woman she had forgiven her husband for once before was suddenly back in his orbit, not as a shadow of the past but as a reality of the present. And when Kirk laughed, leaning back with that all-too-familiar confidence, Jasmine's eyes lit up in a way that made the camera linger, because anyone could see there was no hesitation, no awkwardness, no sense of guilt, just two people who looked far too comfortable with each other to pass it off as coincidence. And that's when the footage cut to the next shocking moment, the one that had fans screaming into their phones and storming the comments sections of every blog and gossip site, because Kirk reached across the table, brushing Jasmine's hand off the menu as if he had the right to make that kind of gesture, a move that looked intimate, a move that looked territorial, and above all, a move that made Rashida's name trend before she even knew why. Because people could not wait to tag her, to demand answers, to ask how she could stay silent when her husband was caught, once again, in the kind of scandal that breaks homes. And this time, the cameras were not forgiving, this time the internet was not kind. Because Rashida's silence was read as pain, and her silence was read as rage, and her silence was read as the calm before the storm. And sure enough, when she finally appeared later that evening on Instagram Live, her face tight with controlled anger, her words measured but dripping with fury, she didn't even have to say Kirk's name for the world to know who she was addressing. Because her message was crystal clear. That she was tired of protecting someone who didn't protect her. Tired of swallowing her pride in the name of family. Tired of looking like a fool while the world laughed at her expense. And the comments poured in. Fans begging her to leave him. Fans defending her strength. Fans split down the middle in a war of opinions. but all united in their thirst for answers. And behind the scenes, insiders claimed Kirk was scrambling, making calls, trying to control the narrative before it spiraled out of his hands. But the damage had already been done. Because once the cameras catch you, there is no erasing the truth, no silencing the whispers, no undoing the betrayal. And as the hours stretched into night, Rashida's closest friends stepped into the drama, Erica Dixon being the first to speak up, calling out Kirk directly in her own livestream, saying she had warned Rashida years ago, saying she had seen this pattern and knew it wasn't over, and her words only poured gasoline on the fire, because if Erica was speaking out, it meant this wasn't just internet gossip, it meant there were truths Rashida's circle had kept quiet out of respect, and now those truths were threatening to spill, and Kirk, instead of facing the storm head-on, stayed quiet, his silence as deafening as Rashida's, but with a different weight, because his silence looked like guilt, his silence looked like confirmation, his silence looked like the act of a man caught red-handed who didn't know what to say. And while fans tore him apart online, Jasmine wasn't hiding either, posting a story with nothing but a smirk and a wineglass emoji, as if mocking the entire situation, as if daring Rashida to respond. And that move alone shifted the energy, because now it wasn't just Kirk in the hot seat, it was Jasmine throwing shade, stirring the pot, and dragging Rashida into a confrontation no woman should ever have to face. And though Rashida tried to keep her composure, though she tried to let the storm pass, the truth is, emotions were running high. Her heart was breaking in real time, and her patience was cracking. And everyone watching knew it was only a matter of time before the inevitable showdown. The kind of face-off that makes history in reality TV. The kind of showdown where tears and tempers collide, where loyalty is tested, where betrayal cuts so deep it cannot be patched with apologies. And as the night carried on, whispers grew louder that Rashida had already left the Frost household, that she had taken the kids and gone to her mother's, that the marriage everyone thought had survived the worst might finally be done for good. But nothing was confirmed, leaving fans refreshing timelines waiting for updates, desperate for the next twist in a story that felt too wild to be real, but too raw to be fake. And in the middle of it all, Kirk's silence lingered, Jasmine's smirk burned like salt in an open wound, and Rashida's controlled rage became the calm before an explosion that no one could stop. Because once betrayal is caught on camera, there's no turning back, only fallout, only heartbreak. Only the kind of chaos that leaves scars long after the cameras stop rolling. By the following morning, the fallout had reached a fever pitch, because what began as whispers and late-night speculation had transformed into front-page scandal. Plastered across every blog and entertainment site that thrives on drama, with headlines screaming betrayal, heartbreak, and revenge. And Rashida's silence through the night only added fuel to the fire, her absence from social media driving fans into a frenzy of guesses. Some insisting she had finally walked out for good, others claiming she was plotting her next move carefully, to make sure Kirk felt every ounce of the humiliation he had dealt her, and all the while Kirk himself was nowhere to be found, ducking the cameras, refusing to answer calls, leaving the world to wonder if he was with Jasmine again or if he was simply hiding. And when Rashida finally reappeared that afternoon, stepping into her store pressed with her head high, flanked by Erica and a cousin who looked ready to throw hands at the first sight of Kirk, the cameras caught it all, the icy look on her face, the way she refused to acknowledge questions, the way her phone buzzed non-stop with calls she never picked up, and in that silence fans could feel the weight of betrayal crushing her, because even without words, Rashida's body language screamed louder than any caption, her clipped steps, her clenched jaw, her refusal to crack a smile, all signaling that this time, forgiveness was not on the table, not when the wound was fresh and the world was watching. And just when fans thought things couldn't get more explosive, Jasmine herself was spotted outside the same store an hour later. Her appearance, no coincidence, but a bold move. One that made bystanders gasp as she strutted toward the entrance with sunglasses covering her eyes and a sly smile on her lips. The tension snapping like electricity as Rashida's team rushed to the door to block her. The air so thick with hostility it was almost suffocating. And witnesses swore they heard Jasmine raise her voice, saying she had a right to be there, saying she wasn't afraid, saying Kirk had invited her into the conversation whether Rashida liked it or not. And the words alone sent shockwaves through the crowd, because if Jasmine was telling the truth, it meant Kirk wasn't just reckless enough to be seen with her. He had gone so far as to open the door for her to step directly into Rashida's world, the same world she had built with her own hands. the same empire she had fought to protect after the first scandal nearly destroyed everything, and when Erica snapped back, shouting that Jasmine had no business being anywhere near Rashida, the scene nearly turned physical. Voices rising, bodies pressing forward, cameras flashing, fans screaming. Until finally, store security ushered Jasmine away, but not before she delivered one last dagger of a line. Throwing her words over her shoulder like a curse, "You'll find out soon enough, Rashida, he's not just your man anymore." And with that, the crowd erupted. Phones flew into the air to capture the moment. Blogs lit up within minutes. And Rashida herself, though silent, couldn't mask the pain flickering across her face, a pain so sharp that fans who once begged her to stay with Kirk now begged her to run, to cut ties. To free herself from the cycle of betrayal that had played out one too many times, and back at home, Kirk was cornered. Insiders reporting that he had locked himself in his office, pacing, calling producers, insisting the footage was being blown out of proportion, insisting that he had done nothing wrong, but even those closest to him couldn't buy the story anymore, not when Jasmine herself seemed so emboldened, so sure of her place, so unafraid to taunt the very woman she had wronged years before. And the truth hung heavy in the air, undeniable, unavoidable, threatening to unravel not just a marriage but a family, because as the cameras continued rolling, as fans continued dissecting every frame, their children were caught in the middle. The reality of grown-up mistakes weighing down on innocent hearts, and Rashida, protective as she is, reportedly broke down later that night with her mother, confessing that she didn't know how much more she could take, that every time she rebuilt herself, Kirk found a way to tear it all down again, and her words, leaked by a close source, struck the internet like a bomb, because for the first time, it wasn't just speculation, it wasn't just Instagram captions, it was a woman on the brink. A woman who had reached her breaking point, and fans, who had watched her journey for years, could feel it, could sense that this chapter would not end with quiet forgiveness but with a storm that would leave everyone scarred. Because the betrayal was too public, the humiliation too deep, the wound too raw. And while Kirk remained in the shadows, Jasmine doubled down, posting a cryptic late-night video of herself sipping champagne, the caption reading, "Some secrets aren't secrets anymore." A post that sent the internet into meltdown yet again, as fans dissected every word, every tone, every smirk, wondering if Jasmine was hinting at something bigger, something darker, something even Rashida didn't know yet. And by the time the sun rose again, Atlanta wasn't just buzzing, it was boiling. A city bracing for the kind of explosion that changes reputations forever, the kind of explosion that no amount of PR or producer spin could ever contain. The city didn't have time to catch its breath before the next twist ripped through the gossip mill. Because just as Jasmine's cryptic champagne video reached viral status, a new leak surfaced, this time a recording that no one was prepared for, a muffled but clear audio clip allegedly capturing Kirk's voice in an intimate late-night conversation. And though the quality was shaky, the words were unmistakable. Him telling someone, almost certainly Jasmine, that he was tired of living a double life, that he couldn't keep pretending, that he needed to be honest even if it hurt, and the audio spread like wildfire, sparking a frenzy of speculation and rage, because if Kirk was confessing to Jasmine in secret, what did that mean for Rashida, for the family, for the years of loyalty she had given him? And the betrayal felt heavier than ever as fans tore into him, demanding accountability, demanding Rashida walk away once and for all. And when the blogs published the audio transcript, line by line, the details cut like knives, especially the moment where Kirk's voice lowered to say, "You know I'll always come back to you, no matter what they think," a phrase that set social media ablaze with accusations that Jasmine had been his hidden priority all along. And while Kirk's camp scrambled to deny the authenticity of the recording, calling it fabricated, edited, spliced together by enemies, insiders whispered a different story, saying the voice was real, the emotion undeniable, and that Kirk had slipped too many times to be saved by denials now. And in the midst of this storm, Rashida's patience finally cracked. Her next move, not a cryptic post or a quiet live but a full sit-down interview, raw and emotional, where she admitted through tears that she had seen the footage, that she had heard the audio, that she didn't know who her husband really was anymore. And the words broke fans' hearts, because here was a woman who had built her brand on strength, on grace, on pushing through storms, and even she was trembling under the weight of this betrayal, saying at one point, "It feels like my whole life has been a lie. Like I'm the last one to know what everyone else already sees." And those words echoed across the internet, replayed in clips, quoted in headlines, used as fuel for endless debates on loyalty and forgiveness. And Kirk, cornered by his wife's raw pain, finally emerged from the shadows. Choosing not to hide but to show up at pressed unannounced, where the cameras caught the confrontation that fans are still talking about. Because as he walked in, Rashida's eyes went cold, her body stiff, and before he could even open his mouth, Erica was already shouting, already pointing, already demanding he leave, but Kirk pushed forward, insisting he needed to explain, insisting things weren't what they seemed. And that's when the shouting match began, Rashida's voice rising as she demanded to know why Jasmine felt so bold. Why Jasmine could taunt her publicly if there wasn't truth behind it. And Kirk, fumbling, sweating, swearing that nothing had happened, only made it worse. Because every word that came out of his mouth sounded like a lie. Every denial clashing with the footage, with the audio, with Jasmine's smirks. And when Rashida finally snapped, her voice cracking as she shouted, "You've humiliated me." For the last time, Kirk, the room fell silent. Fans frozen in the comments. Cameras zooming in on her face as she wiped tears away with trembling hands. And Kirk, stunned, didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even defend himself. And in that silence, the entire city knew the marriage was hanging by a thread thinner than it had ever been. And as if the night hadn't already been chaotic enough, Jasmine herself inserted herself into the drama once again, posting a photo outside the Frost house with a caption that read, "No more hiding." A move so brazen, so reckless, it sent shockwaves through the community, because it wasn't just a game anymore. It was war, a war with no rules, no boundaries, no concern for the collateral damage, and the collateral damage was everywhere. From Rashida's children being dragged into whispers at school to her business, facing boycotts from fans who wanted her to take a stand, to Kirk's reputation as a businessman crumbling with each headline. And still, Jasmine kept poking, posting vague references, liking shady comments, reveling in the chaos as if the destruction of a family was her sport. And Rashida, caught between her heartbreak and her fury, began to plot, sources saying she was already in touch with lawyers, already weighing her options, already considering whether it was time to walk away for good. And though she hadn't confirmed anything, the possibility alone sent the internet into meltdown, fans debating custody battles, financial fallout, empire divisions, and all while Kirk looked more broken than ever, appearing in shaky paparazzi clips with bags under his eyes, mumbling that people didn't understand, that he was being set up, but his excuses rang hollow. His voice weaker than ever, and his image as the family man he once claimed to be was in tatters, shredded by his own actions, his own secrets, his own inability to let go of the very woman who had once destroyed everything. And as the saga dragged into yet another week, the city braced itself for the next chapter, because if there was one thing clear by now, it was that this story wasn't over. That the storm hadn't passed, that the worst may still be coming, and fans could feel it in their bones. That the real explosion was still ahead, and that when it hit, no one, neither Kirk, nor Jasmine, nor Rashida would walk away unscarred. The days that followed turned into a spectacle that no scriptwriter could have dreamed up, because just when fans thought the saga had peaked, the drama twisted again with new revelations that cracked open wounds even deeper, starting with a bombshell livestream from Jasmine herself, where she sat in her car, eyes wide, voice trembling not with fear but with the thrill of holding the world's attention, claiming she was done being painted as the villain, done being blamed for Kirk's choices, that she had receipts proving he wasn't just casually meeting her but actively pursuing her, calling her late at night, sending money, making promises. And when she flashed what looked like screenshots of text messages across the screen, fans froze, zoomed in, replayed, and dissected every line. Some messages showing pet names, others showing Kirk begging to see her. And though Kirk immediately rushed to call them fake, saying anyone could Photoshop texts, the damage was already done, because Jasmine's performance was convincing, her tears looking real, her voice catching in just the right places to make people wonder if maybe she was telling the truth this time, and Rashida, watching from the sidelines, reportedly collapsed into a chair at her store, whispering to her staff that she couldn't believe this was her life, couldn't believe after everything she had endured that Kirk had dragged her right back into the same humiliation, and her pain was magnified by the sheer spectacle of it all, because this wasn't a private fight anymore, it was public theater, every moment dissected by strangers, every tear debated in comments, every silence filled with speculation. And fans who once cheered for her marriage to survive were now united in urging her to cut ties, to reclaim her peace, to stop carrying the weight of a man who refused to change. And while Rashida tried to keep herself composed in front of the cameras, those closest to her whispered that behind closed doors she was shattered, that she cried at night, that she screamed into her pillow, that she wondered how she could ever trust again. And Kirk, instead of calming the storm, fueled it further when he was caught on yet another camera. This time stepping out of a lounge in the early hours of the morning with Jasmine once again by his side, and, though he insisted it was coincidence, insisted they had just run into each other, no one believed him. Because the way Jasmine held her head high, the way she leaned toward him, the way his hand brushed against her back as they pushed through the crowd, it all told a story far louder than his words. A story of a man who couldn't let go, and a woman who refused to stay hidden. And when that clip hit the blogs, Rashida finally snapped, posting her own video, her voice trembling with rage as she told her fans she was done, that she had fought long enough, that she had given chance after chance only to be dragged through the mud again and again. And her words sent the internet into a frenzy, with hashtag stand with Rasheeda and hashtag boycott Kirk trending overnight. Fans rallying behind her, celebrities chiming in, some applauding her strength, others shaking their heads that it had taken this long. And Kirk, watching his empire crumble, tried one last desperate move. Appearing on camera with tears in his eyes, insisting he loved his wife, that he had made mistakes, that Jasmine was nothing but a distraction, but the world had grown tired of his apologies, tired of his cycles, tired of his endless betrayals. And even Rashida's silence after his video spoke volumes, because she didn't defend him, didn't repost, didn't acknowledge his pleas, and that silence became the final nail in the coffin for fans who believed her marriage was finally over. And Jasmine, emboldened by the chaos, doubled down again, posting a photo of herself with the caption, "He's mine when he wants to be," a line so cruel, so calculated, it sent waves of anger across social media. And though some fans turned their rage on her, most aimed it squarely at Kirk, calling him the architect of his own downfall. The man who had taken a strong woman and broken her in front of the world. And as the days dragged on, the Frost household became a fortress, paparazzi circling, fans camping outside stores, producers salivating at the thought of capturing it all for the next season. And inside, Rashida weighed her options. Her lawyers whispering about assets, her friends whispering about freedom, and her mother whispering about peace. And though no final decision had been made, the energy in the air was undeniable, the sense that a chapter was closing, that the love story fans had rooted for was collapsing under the weight of betrayal, too heavy to ignore. And the city buzzed with one haunting question: if this was the end, would it be quiet, or would it explode in one final showdown that no one would ever forget? And as cameras rolled, as fans refreshed their timelines, as Kirk and Jasmine played their reckless game, Rashida stood at the center of it all. Her silence louder than screams, her pain more powerful than any speech, and the world watched, waiting for the moment she would finally choose herself over a man who had never chosen her the way she deserved. And just like that, what started as a secret night out has spiraled into one of the most shocking scandals Atlanta has ever witnessed. With Kirk Frost standing accused of betraying his wife once again, Jasmine Bolden fanning the flames with her cryptic posts and bold appearances, and Rashida caught in the middle of a storm she never asked for but one she's now forced to weather in the public eye. Fans are divided, some begging Rashida to walk away and never look back, others clinging to the hope that somehow, against all odds, the Frosts will find a way to rise from the ashes. But one thing is certain, the footage is out there, the whispers are louder than ever, and the damage has already been done. Questions linger in every corner. Was Kirk's night with Jasmine a one-time mistake, or part of a deeper pattern that never truly ended? Will Rashida finally choose herself after years of sacrifice, or will history repeat itself one more time? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, just how much more is still hidden behind closed doors, waiting to be exposed? The cameras may have stopped rolling for now, but the story is far from over. And you can be sure that the next chapter will be even more explosive than the last. So tell us, whose side are you on? Team Rashida, Team Kirk, or do you believe Jasmine holds the real truth? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is the kind of drama where every opinion counts and every fan's voice shapes the story. Don't forget to hit that like button if you are glued to the twists. Subscribe for more jaw-dropping updates from the world of reality TV, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next scandal. Trust us, you won't want to blink, because in this world, the drama never sleeps.